talking for 5 minutes on a broadcast that wasn't actually going out live because, and I've warned you I'm not technical, because we forgot to hit the start recording button. But here we are. So good morning, everybody. So before we begin, we've had so many questions. I'm so grateful to you all of you who are participating and wanting to participate, and some of you are wanting to participate live, and I think we do have 1 or 2 live questions today. We're still figuring out how to work this out, so please bear with us. But for any of you who want to participate or want to know more about what we're doing, okay, write to us at Rosemary, that's me, Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. That's our office email. And if you want to send in a question, fine. If you want to be put onto our mailing list, if you're on our mailing list, if you're on our email mailing list, we send out notifications from time to time as to what's happening, what we're doing, what we're about. So anything that's new that's coming up that I'm doing, you will be notified first. We also send out links to YouTube and to wherever else we happen to be broadcasting. So if you want to be on the email list, please write to us. We also have Facebook and we have Twitter, and we have 3 pages on Facebook. So we have the main page, and then we have who knows what the other page is. I've warned you I'm not technical, but we do have a healing page. And on our healing page, we have a whole group of people all over the world on our team, people who want to send healing, people who want to participate with us in sending healing. And what we do is we send healing as a group, and we take our healing minute, which is at 11 o'clock every day. 11 o'clock in the morning, wherever you are in the world, and you join with us and you send out your healing prayers and your healing energy to all of those who are on the Rosemary Altea healing list. If you yourself would like healing, would like to request healing, go to that page or send us an email and request, and you'll be put on our healing list. And we'll send you healing prayers and healing energy every day. If you know of someone who you think would benefit, who you would like to put on our healing list, then send their name and either go to Facebook and request, or send us an email and request healing for that person, and we will put them on our list. Healing really works. And the more of us who get together and the more of us who send out our energy and our love and our healing prayers, the more powerful and the more positive and the stronger that healing becomes for the individuals who are on the healing list. So please, if you want to participate with us, let us know, or just join us and just send out your own prayers in your own time. And don't forget to ask all of those who are on Rosemary's healing list, and that way healing goes directly to them. So we're going to start with questions because we've had so many questions, and so many people want to know so many things. So I think that instead of me sort of telling a story today or talking about particular instances that are going on in the world, I think what we'll do is we'll go straight to questions. Now, in order to have those questions, we have, as we did last time, we have Carolyn, who is my assistant, and she's going to read the questions to me because she's the one who takes the questions and deals with the emails anyway. So she's going to read those questions to me, so you'll hear her voice, and then I'm going to, if you see me keep looking to the side here, that's because she's sitting right next to me. So we say good morning to Carolyn. And okay, Carolyn, could we please have the first question?
Good morning. Mary asks, how do you deal with family situations when children are kept from grandparents because a parent has passed away?
Oh boy, this is an interesting question, and it's a difficult question to answer, to be honest. But it happens much more than we would like to think it does. A parent passes and the family is left in turmoil and what have you. And the children in that family are left without a parent, whether it's a mother or a father. The trauma and the difficulty is the same. And as often happens in families, we either get on with our in-laws or we don't get on with our in-laws. Whatever happens in families, there's always strife. No matter how loving and how caring a family is, there are always times when there are problems and when there are issues. But when somebody has, let's say, a bigger problem, when a mother perhaps really dislikes her mother-in-law, or a father really dislikes his mother-in-law, or whatever, and unfortunately it's often the mother-in-law and not the father-in-law, unfortunately, you know, because people do clash, then when that person passes, let's be clear, okay, we have a mother and a father, and the mother really dislikes her husband's mother, so she's having an issue with the mother-in-law. So that's the scenario we're going to deal with. And the husband dies, and the only reason really that the mother thinks to interact with the grandparents of her children is because of the husband. And so, you know, the mother and father-in-law get, you know, invites for Christmas and for birthdays and all of that stuff under duress. This may be making some sense to some of you. Some of you may have had that same situation. And so when that person dies, this is a perfect opportunity for the mother of those children to say, well, we don't have to have anything more to do with them. And they literally keep the children away from the grandparents. Whether the grandparents deserve it or not in the eyes of that parent, nobody deserves to be kept away from children unless they have done grievous harm to that child. If you are a parent in this circumstance, if you are a parent keeping the grandparents, deliberately keeping the grandparents and your children away from each other, I want you to consider the damage that you are potentially doing. And I can hear some of you raising your hands and saying, well, you don't know the whole story, and you don't know what he did or she did or so on and so forth, which is true. And some of you may have what you consider to be pretty good reasons why you don't want your children to interact with the grandparents of your deceased partner. And I get it. And sometimes I get that there are real and genuine reasons. But in my experience, there are so many, many, many people who do this for pettiness, for grudges held, which under the circumstances should be let go, for the good of your own soul and also for the good of your children. I grew up without grandparents. I never knew my grandparents. When I hear people talking about their grandparents and the love of a grandmother or the love of a grandfather, I have to admit to being a little bit jealous. Even at my age, I still think, oh, I wish I'd had the experience of a grandparent. Grandparents, even if you don't agree with everything they do and say, grandparents bring an awful lot of wisdom and a lot of joy to their grandchildren. I know as a grandmother, I bring an awful lot of wisdom and an awful lot of joy to my grandson, but he brings an awful lot of wisdom and joy to me. Before you embark on this road of denial and denying grandparents, what really, unless they've done something terrible, what really is their God-given right to have some involvement with their grandchildren. Before you embark on that denying these rights, if you go into your heart and go into your soul and you ask what is best for your children, I think you'll find that what is best for your children is to have a family, a complete family, which means allowing grandparents access. For those of you who are grandparents who have been denied your grandchildren, if I were that grandparent, I'd do everything in my power to try to change it. I'd go knocking on the door of my daughter-in-law, or in my case, my son-in-law. I would apologize, even if it took a lot of courage for me to apologize. Even if I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for, I would apologize that I'd done something to make a situation a bad one. I would do everything in my power. So to all of you grandparents who are suffering, and I cannot imagine you suffering, because I cannot imagine my little one being denied access to me, I'm going to say, you know, do what you can. Don't sit passively by. And any grudges that you might have towards your, let's say, daughter-in-law or son-in-law, try to look into your heart, because grudges on either side, whether it comes from the parents of these kids or whether it comes from the grandparents of these kids, grudges on either side do you harm. They do you harm. And they certainly, if you want the best for your grandchildren, they certainly don't do the grandchildren any good at all. So if you're considering the welfare of your grandchildren or your children, and if you're considering what is best for your grandchildren or for your children, let go the grudges, let go the anger, and try if you can to put things right. Don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry. Don't be afraid to say, whatever it is you want me to do, I'll try and do my best. Don't be afraid to eat humble pie. Remember, the most important thing here is the children having a complete and loving and happy environment and a happy family. Shall we have the next question?
Yes, ma'am. Sandra asks, my son died 22 years ago. Do our loved ones continue to be near us after many years after they've passed?
Oh gosh, this takes me back and back and back. I can remember one of my first clients came to see me when I was in England, and she came and sat down next to me. She was very, very nervous, and I didn't really know much about her, but very, very quickly, I saw a young man standing next to her. And the reason that this question has reminded me is because I think he was about 20, 22 years of age. So I start to talk to this lady, and I say, I've got a young man here, and he's 22, and he's blah, blah, blah. And she looked so puzzled, so confused. And she said, I don't think, you know, and I said, well, let me continue a little bit, because he tells me he died as a baby. And she said, but that was 22 years ago. And I said, yes, it was 22 years ago. And he's grown, and he's become a strong, handsome young man who is standing next to you. That tells us that, you know, first of all, children grow, they learn. It also tells us that, yes, even 22 years later, we can still communicate with our loved ones. Even after 50 years, we can still communicate with our loved ones. I've done it many, many times. So who asked this question?
Sandra.
So Sandra, wherever you are, Sandra, I'm not sure which state you're in or which country you're in, but Sandra, first of all, let me just say, the loss of a child, I believe, being a mother, I believe the loss of a child is probably the worst loss that any of us can suffer. And my heart goes out to you. And good for you that you're still asking questions, because, you know, people say when we lose a child, you know, well, give it time, you'll get over it. And Sandra, you know perfectly well, after 22 years, you never get over it. You never get over it. You learn to live with it, but you never get over it. But I can assure you, even, you know, after 22 years, I can assure you that your son is still with you. that he is still your angel, that he is still participating very much so in your family. And in fact, even as I'm talking to you, I have my spirit guide, Grey Eagle, who is sending a message through him from your son. And the message is from your son, thanks for the roses. So the answer is yes, 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 yes. Even after 22 years, he's still with you, darling, and always. Shall we have that next question?
Yes, Jacqueline from the UK asks, frequently I see people who have lost a loved one get very physically ill shortly afterwards. Why is that?
Okay, well, who is it from the UK?
Jacqueline.
I'm sorry, I lost my memory. Jacqueline from the UK. Hi, fellow Brit, first of all. Well, it's very common because when we lose a loved one, the trauma and the energy that it takes for the grief that we have can often deplete us, not just emotionally, not just mentally, but very much physically. And the aftermath of losing someone close to you, for instance, if you were to have lost your father, the fact that he's still with you, the fact that he's still around you, I think you know this anyway, Jacqueline, I think you really know this. But losing someone that close to you, losing someone through that trauma can often trigger physical imbalance within us, which is why it's very, very important when we lose someone to not try to shove the grief away, not to try to push it away. Don't ever be afraid, and this is for everyone, and obviously not just for Jacqueline, but Jacqueline, for you in particular. When we lose someone, you know, oftentimes we're in situations where we have to be strong, we have to be brave for everybody else in the family. We can't go around blubbering and crying all the time. So we put on a brave face, and we're often doing that, trying to be strong very often for other people. We often keep our emotions and our grief inside of us. We keep it deep inside of us. And that's when it can do the most damage and the most harm, because when we keep trauma inside of us and we don't know how to let it go, or we don't want to talk about it with anybody else, or we feel that we can't talk about it with anybody else, that is when it will affect us emotionally sooner or later. So I always say to people, you know, if you're about to lose someone, if someone you know and love is dying, and you know that they don't have too much longer left, very often what we try to do is we try to protect that person by not talking about the situation, by not talking about the fact that, you know, we're going to miss them and we're going to, you know, agree for them. And we try to protect them by not talking about it. And it's the very worst thing we can do, because the truth of the matter is, if someone is dying, they know it. Pretty much most of the time, they know it. And not talking about it is, it's difficult for them, but they're trying to protect you and you're not talking about it. You're trying to protect them. The truth of the matter is nobody's being protected, and everybody's keeping those emotions and that trauma inside of them. So it's very important to learn, talk about your grief. It's also very important to understand it doesn't matter if you cry. Because if you cry, it gives permission for those in your family to cry. If they see you cry, they know they can cry, and it's okay. So please express your grief. Don't be afraid, and don't ever think that you're protecting someone else by holding your grief inside, because doing that really can cause tremendous stress, heart attacks, physical bodily things going wrong, breaking down. We are spiritual beings having this human experience, but in that human experience, we're very fragile. So don't be afraid, express your grief. Right, next question from Carolyn.
Darlene from New York asks, How can I explain to my small child about the death of a sibling?
Okay, so then what you're saying is a young child loses his brother or his sister. That, I think that's the question, and that's from Darlene. So hello, Darlene. This is a difficult question, simply because some children are more sensitive than others. Some children you can approach one way, but to approach other children the same way could be harmful. So what I always say is, as the parent, you know your child well and you know the best way to approach your child with this. But I'm going to say, as with the last question, as with, you know, making sure that we talk about grief, always answer if a child asks a question. When I had my daughter growing up, she was a very inquisitive little thing, and she would ask why, and I would answer her question, and the next question would be, well, why? And well, why? And there were times when I really got so tired of hearing the why, and I'm sure that all of you mothers out there and fathers really relate to what I'm saying. But it's very important, and particularly with loss, and we're on the subject of loss today, particularly with loss, it's very, very important as far as children go, that if they ask a question, even if it's difficult for you to answer it, if they ask a question, even if it's paining you and if it's causing you pain, and the answer is going to make you cry or going to upset you, please answer the question anyway. Don't be afraid to cry and show your child that you're crying and that you're grieving. Because again, as in with the last question, with grief, and especially with the loss of children, but with any kind of grief, it is very, very important that you express it. And it's also important that you can show your children that they can express it too. And children don't learn by what we say to them. Children learn by our example. So don't feel that you've got to be strong and swallow your tears and be the brave person acting as if nothing here happened and that everything is the same as it was. Because the truth of the matter is everything is not the same as it was. And there is always going to be that huge, huge loss. There's always going to be that big hole in your family from the loss of this child. So as far as siblings go, don't be afraid, even if you start crying as you're answering their questions. Hold them to you, hold them tight. Tell them that it's okay for them to cry. Let them know that they can grieve. Give them permission to grieve. And share your grieving. Share the grieving process with each other. And always, no matter how difficult, answer the question as honestly as you can. If the answer to the question is, you know what, I don't know, that's okay. Show your children you don't know everything. Show your children, you know, you don't know all of the answers. But when you say to that child, you know, I don't know, then always follow up with either, but maybe we could find out, or, you know, I don't know, but I'm hoping that this will be the answer. If a child says, where did my brother go? Where did my sister go? Because they're not there anymore, then sit them down and gently say to them, and this depends on your religious belief. If in my case, I would say they've gone to be with God. They've gone to be with their angels. That will trigger a dozen more questions from that child, and that's okay, because it's important to get that child talking and expressing their grief and expressing their questions in the best way they can. So as a parent, that would be my advice to you. Hold your child, sit them on your knees, snuggle with them, get the tissues out. Don't be afraid to cry, but always answer the questions as honestly as you can. Next question. I'm going to have a drink, and I'm sorry, I've got to apologize. My nasty cough is still there, but anyway, we're getting through this beautifully. All right, Carolyn, sock it to me.
Okay. Jolene from California asks, when someone dies and you were fighting and arguing and you didn't get to apologize before they passed, how do you let go of those feelings? How do you resolve that?
I've had this come up many times. One particular time I was in Italy, and I was actually in a big seminar. There were hundreds of people, and one woman put her hand up for a question, and she lost her son. They were arguing, they were fighting, and she'd actually said to him that her son was living with her at the time, and he was, I don't know, 18 or 19, something like that. And she actually said to him, well, you know, you just can get out because I don't want you living with me anymore. You can just find somewhere else to live and you can just get out. And he said, fine, I will, and stormed out of the door. And of course, you can guess the rest. He got on his motorbike, and within less than an hour, he was gone. Now, we all do this. I fight with my daughter sometimes. I know you'll all be surprised and horrified because, you know, people think that I'm some sort of superhuman. I don't argue, I don't fight, I don't, you know, do all those human things. Well, I do. And I've had a few fights with my daughter and a few arguments with my daughter. Of course, I'm always right. And she would laugh and she would say, of course, she's always right. Because we've always had the ability to, even though we've been fighting and arguing, we've always had that ability to always come together and to agree, even if it's to agree to disagree. But sometimes, and we all do it, sometimes we say something and we get angry and we put the phone down, or we slam the door, or we walk out, or whatever. And it can happen within minutes. That person is gone. And there's no way back. There's no way back. And this poor woman in Italy who told her son, you know, to get out, you're not living with me anymore, go find somewhere else to live, has got to live with that guilt for the rest of her life. And there's nothing you can do to change it. You can't take back. This is why it's so important when you're arguing, be careful what you say, because you cannot take it back. Once it's said, it's said. But in the heat of the moment, we're all human, and you know, we all do that sort of thing. What you can do, and the only thing that you can do, is to come to some understanding within yourself, not to give yourself, if you're the person who did this, who fought and argued and then didn't have time to take it back, or you were too stubborn to take it back until you perceive it's too late. If you're that person, remind yourself you're human. So you can't take the guilt away. It's going to be there forever. You can't take the words back. It's done, it's said. The situation has happened. But if you remind yourself, you're just human. And truthfully, this situation could happen to any one of us at any time. None of us is exempt from the possibility of this happening. So remind yourself that you're human. And also remind yourself and ask yourself this question, which is what I told this woman in Italy about her son. What do you think your son would want? Do you think he would want you to live the rest of your life in grief, anxiety, and covered in guilt, shrouded in guilt? Or do you think, as hard and as difficult as it might be for you to do, that he might want you to actually get out and live your life? And of course, we all know the answer is to get out and live your life the best you can. And I would suggest that in certain circumstances, if this helps you to get over what you did, or it appeases your conscience, my puppy is snuggling down with me as we speak, if it appeases you or helps you in any way, I always say the best way to stop indulging or thinking too much on what is happening to you and how hard and how painful it is for you, is go out and find somebody who's in a worse position and see if you can help them. So volunteer at a children's home, volunteer anywhere you like, but keep yourself busy and help other people as best you can. You cannot change what happened. You cannot take the guilt away, but you can make a life for yourself that your son or daughter or that person you've had this fight with, you can make a life for yourself that that person would be proud of and would smile at. So that would be my advice. Try and do that. Next question.
Marcella asks, when a murder victim returns to the spirit world, do they meet up with the person who killed them?
Well, hello, Marcella. And what an interesting question. Do people who have been murdered meet up with their killer? Well, it depends on the individual person. I have to say that some people want to meet the person who did them harm. They want to meet that person because they may have questions, or they may feel that they want to face the situation, to face that person, to see that person as they really are, perhaps to forgive that person. There are many reasons why somebody might want to talk to their killer, talk to the person who killed them. Then there are many reasons for it, one of which is, to forgive or to accept or to try to understand. But there are many people also who really don't want to do it. They don't want to meet that person. Now, the spirit world is, it's huge. You're not going to just bump into somebody, by accident. If you don't want to meet the person who murdered you, you don't have to do it. The world is a big place. The spirit world is a big place. You hang out with the people that you love and you care about, and you avoid the people who you don't love and who you don't care about. So, this just doesn't just apply to people who murderers. I've had the question asked, if somebody's been married 2 times or 3 times, or in some cases even more times than that, what happens? Do they have to face all of their wives, or what happens? And it's funny because you only meet the you only meet the people you want to meet. You only meet the people who you love and care about. Here's a question. I'm going to turn it around. What happens if you've been married 5 times and all of those 5 wives who have gone before you don't want anything to do with you? How about that? Well, if they don't want anything to do with you, they don't have to have anything to do with you. So you go to the spirit world and you don't see any of them, because if they don't want to meet you and they've moved on and they're living a happier life without you, fine. But usually what happens is, if you've been married once or twice or however many times, usually what happens is when you first go to the spirit world, you can meet those people if you would like and if they would like. This is not about just what you want, it's about what they want too. So again, with the murder question, if the murderer does not want to meet the person or the people that they have murdered, they do have a choice. We all have choices. So it's really a question of having choices. And so if both parties want to do it, they'll do it. If one party does not want to do it, then they won't do it, because nobody's forcing us to do anything we don't want to do. Next question.
Okay, we have a live question from Monica in Texas.
Hello, Monica in Texas, and thank you for joining us live. I know we have other people, and it's so hard to get all of these questions in. So let's have the question, shall we?
She'd like to know why some people in the spirit world connect better than others.
Oh, well, I always say I don't know the answer to this one, but I actually sort of have an idea. When people come to see me for a consultation, they come with very high expectations. And the first thing I say every time is there are no guarantees. I cannot guarantee you that I'm going to connect with your loved one in the spirit world. I can only guarantee you that I will try my very best. Okay, because again, as I just said in the last question, you can't force people into situations. You can't force people in the spirit world to do what they don't want to do. I had a circumstance where I had a man from the spirit world whose daughter came, and I was able to make contact with him like that. I mean, so fast, so quickly, with no problems whatsoever. And then later, his wife came, expecting the same results as her daughter, and he would not. I saw him. I was able to give her his description, his name, and so on. I did not know that they were related at the time. I did not know that I'd seen the daughter already, and now I was seeing the mother, or the wife of this man. But he absolutely, other than his name, his rank, his number, he was killed in the war, he would not talk. So, but her mother came through, and her aunts and her uncles and siblings and you name it. And that poor lady went away very unhappy because all she wanted to connect with was her husband, who didn't want to connect with her for whatever reason. There are times, though, and I think this is more to the question, this is more to the point. There are people in the spirit world who, for whatever reason, they get nervous, or they're upset and they're emotional and they can't speak. We get tongue-tied, we get, that choked up feeling, that lump in our throats, which can prevent us very often from saying what it is we want to say. Or we find that the difficulty is mostly about being able to connect on a vibrational level. Now, when I have people come to see me, I always say to them, talk to me. I don't want your life history, but as I'm talking to you and as I'm telling you what I'm hearing from the spirit world, say yes to me if you understand. Say no to me if you don't understand. Do not nod at me. Say, yes, I need to hear your voice. Those in the spirit world, need to hear your voice. Do not nod at me. They know you. When they hear your voice and they connect with your voice vibration, they're going to connect. They're going to be encouraged to connect in a much stronger way. Vibrational levels, everything about this entire universe, including the world we are living in, of course, is all about vibration. So when I'm talking to someone in the spirit world, my vibrational level needs to connect with the vibrational level of the person in the spirit world. I don't know how I do it. I have no clue how, but usually we get a vibrational level which melds like this. So the person in the spirit world is on the same vibrational level that I am on. I'm able to raise my vibrational level to meet the vibrational level of that person in the spirit world, and bingo. If you can imagine, it's like they're at one end of a wire. You can say it's a telegraph wire or a telephone wire or whatever it is. They're at one end of this wire. We are at the other end of, or I am at the other end of this wire, okay. And the wire is pulled tightly, a little bit like, when a piano tuner uses a tuning fork, okay? The tighter the wire, the higher the vibrational level. The looser the wire, the lower the vibrational level. And we have to play with the wire in a way so that we can get both of us running down the wire. The voice of this person, the communication of this person, and my voice and my communication coming down the wire until we meet beautifully, just like this. Now, when a person speaks, that energy, that vibration that comes from that voice goes down the wire. Now, because they know each other, the person in the spirit world and the person who's come for the consultation, they know each other, they, using voice vibration, zoom down the wire, no problem whatsoever. And the person in the spirit world can hear can connect with that vibrational level very easily because they know each other and they're used to doing it. They're used to being around each other, so they know each other and the connection becomes stronger. All right, so we have the person on this end of the wire and I'm at this end of the wire, and the person in the spirit world tells me something, and the person who's come for the consultation nods, nothing, no response. So this person will repeat and then repeat and then repeat the same thing over and over again until they're sure that the person who's come for the consultation is understanding what they're saying. And the only way for them to know sometimes that there is understanding is when that person speaks, for the vibration connects, we can move on to the next thing that this person in the spirit world wants to say. I hope I've not made it sound too complicated. It's not so complicated, but it's all about vibrational levels. Now, if you, without me or without a medium, without somebody's help, if you want to connect with and to attune to your loved ones in the spirit world, just keep in mind it's about vibrational levels. Keep in mind that sometimes you can talk to them in your head. There's a thought that passes through your head. Thoughts are energy. Thoughts are living things. They go out into the universe. They reach out into the universe. And in this case, your thought can reach out to your loved one who can grasp that thought. And again, you're coming down the wire. Your energy is running along the wire. Their energy is running down the wire until they connect. Fabulous. Great. They connect. All right. But sometimes if there's an issue, sometimes for whatever reason, and there could be a dozen different reasons why just the thoughts in your head aren't working, then don't be afraid to use your voice and use the level of your voice. So either speak it out loudly or use a higher tone or a lower tone or whatever works, and practice just using your voice and using your voice as that vibrational level. And keep in your mind as you're doing it, keep in mind that wire. How tight does it need to be? On a piano, the piano tuner, to get a middle C, the piano tuner will tune it tightly to get that middle C. If you're going down to an F or a G, they might loosen the wire. If you're going up to an F or a G or to a next octave up, they tighten the wire. Your voice is, do you lower it? Do you higher it? And it takes practice, but you can do it. But speaking out and talking to your loved one, even if you might think you're going crazy, you know, if anybody walked in, they think I was going crazy because they're seeing me talking to nobody, but you know there is somebody. Use your voice, use a level of your voice, and just keep practicing until you feel and connect with your loved one in the spirit world. Everything is vibration. Everything in this universe is vibration. If we're on the same wavelength as somebody else, then we connect. When you meet someone for the first time and you get on with them really well, you think, oh, this is my kind of person. We say, oh, we're on the same wavelength. All right, that wavelength extends beyond this earth plane. That wavelength brings us to our loved ones in the spirit world who are trying to get on the same wavelength as us, but they need our cooperation. Bingo, same wavelength, join together, perfect. Try it out and see what you think. Let's have our next question.
Okay, one more. Aaron from Florida asks, as a man, how can I help my friend deal with the loss of his wife? It's very difficult for men, he thinks, to deal with loss, and he's not sure how to help his friend.
Well, who is it?
Aaron.
Aaron from Florida.
Yeah.
In my state now. Okay, well, and aren't we lucky to have the sunshine? And thank you for your question. How do you, what a nice man you are. What a nice person you are. You have a friend who you see is grieving and you want to help. The simple answer is be a friend. Just be a friend. Be there whenever you can be. You know, you can't be there all the time. And sometimes it's not good to be there all the time because, you know, in grief, we have to learn to do things by ourselves. But be there. Don't talk. That's what I would say. Listen. I mean, sometimes, of course, you'll be talking, but encourage him to talk to you and listen. Pay attention to what he's saying to you. Because sometimes in grief, you know, somebody just wants to just babble on and talk about things that may to you seem inconsequential, but which to them are important. In grief, you know, we like to get things off of our chests. So your friend might want to say, well, I wasn't such a good husband, or I wish I'd done this, or she always wanted to go here and I never took her, and so on. Because part of grieving, and especially the initial stages of grieving, part of the grieving process is having to deal with guilt. Because even if we could do nothing to prevent the passing of that person, in our humanness, we still feel guilty. We still deal with guilt. It's a crazy thing, but there it is. Because so often, we really, most of us don't have anything to feel guilty about, but I can assure you, going through those stages of grieving during that first year of grieving, you will come across the guilt. If he says things like, I should have done more, I should have been a better husband, I should have done this or that and the other, don't try to argue with him. Don't just, you know, just say, well, I'm sure you did the best you could. Or in my circumstance, and Aaron, you might want to try this, you know, well, I believe that she didn't die. I believe that she's still with us. I believe that, you know, she can see you and hear you, and that she's still participating with your family. And I'm sure that whatever you did or didn't do, or you should have done or didn't do, I'm sure that she's forgiven it and is smiling down on you. So reassure, talk about your beliefs, encourage him to talk as much as he can. Encourage him to cry if he feels like crying. Don't say, don't cry, it's okay, because he needs to cry, and guess what? It isn't okay. So if he feels the need to cry, hand him the tissues. And if you feel like crying because he's crying, take a tissue for yourself. Don't be afraid to show him that you're as moved and affected by his grief as, you know, as he is affected by his wife's passing. Encourage him to talk to her. Encourage him to believe that she can hear him, because, you know, you didn't just call in here by accident. You obviously have pretty much the same beliefs that I have, or even if you don't, then you're sort of on the fence and wondering if it's possible. So try and encourage him to believe, you know, look, it's possible that she can hear you. Even if you don't believe it necessarily 100% yourself, you know, it's possible. And what if it's possible? And say to him, well, what if then? What if there is such a thing as life after death? What if she could hear you? What would you like to say to her? What if there is a life after death? What do you think she would like you to be doing right now? Do you think she would like you to be holed up in your house, or do you think she'd like us to go for a beer, or go out and play a round of golf? What do you think she would like you to do if she could be here right now and tell you what it is that she'd like you to do? What do you think that would be? And then encourage him to do whatever that is. Be a friend. Be a listening, caring, loving friend. It seems to me that you already are. There is no magic. Grief takes time. And sometimes people grieve for years and years and years and years and years. But even in your grief, you can live your life. And, learn and grow, even in your grief. You can become, you know, a somewhat happy and loving and forgiving person. So don't try to hurry his grief along. Give him time. Let him talk to you. And thank you for that question, because it shows that you are really a true friend. Do we have time for one
quick personal question?
Oh, a personal. Oh my goodness.
Jane?
You know, this happened last time, and
Yeah.
you know what? I'm not sure about answering these personal questions, but go for it.
Jane from Idaho would like to know, what is your favorite flower?
Oh gosh. Well, in England, when I was in England, I was a gardener, and I loved gardening, and I had a beautiful garden, and my pride and joy were my roses, which I had probably 500 of. I had a big garden. So I liked the tea roses, but I also like the old-fashioned roses, the delphiniums and the hollyhocks and all of those things. You know, I just love flowers. And you know, talking of flowers, those of you who will go and visit your loved one's grave and all that stuff, just a reminder, you know, we go to the grave, we take these beautiful flowers, we leave them by the grave, and we go home. Okay. Now, when we go to the grave, our loved ones walk with us. Okay. They stand by our side when we say whatever it is we say. They watch as we put the flowers down. We leave. They leave with us. Who gets the flowers? So my advice, speaking of flowers, so it's not such a weird question, my advice concerning flowers and giving flowers to your loved ones who have passed, please will you take them home, put them in a vase, buy the photograph of the person you love who has passed, and let everybody enjoy them, because that person you have loved and lost is in your home with you, enjoying the flowers. They are not by the graveside, and they are not watching as the flowers wilt away and nobody sees the beauty of them. So put them in a vase, buy the photograph, and then everybody can enjoy them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your questions. I've had a great time as usual. Do we have anything else to say, Carolyn? Oh, we do. Oh, look at this. 20-year anniversary of The Eagle and the Rose on on CD. My Dulcet Tones. I'm reading the book. Yes, I'm actually reading it. It's me, the author, reading this book. We are celebrating by bringing out this new CD. There are, I do believe, 3 of them. It's an abridged version, but it's a wonderful way to listen to this book that's 20 years old now. I can't believe I'm that old myself now. 20 years old, and we're celebrating the 20th anniversary by bringing out this audio of the book. And it's a great way, you know, in your car, if you're traveling, if you're going on a journey, it's a great way to listen to my very first and probably my most favorite book, The Eagle and the Rose. So I thank you for that. And if you want to know more about that or how to buy it, email us at rosemary@rosemaryaltea.com. I just would like to say God bless you all and thank you for joining me. See you next week.